joint meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Glendale Housing Authority for July 2nd, 2013, and called to order at 3:06 p.m. May we have a roll call for the council?
Council members Friedman, Najarian,
Here.
Harrow,
Here.
Tanyan, Mayor Weaver.
Here. And for the Housing Authority?
Authority members Friedman, Incy,
Here.
Najarian,
Here.
Harrow,
Here.
Weaver,
Here.
Chair Sinanian, Vice Chair Parazian.
May we have your report?
Agenda for the July 2nd, 2013 joint public meeting of the City Council and the Housing Authority was posted on Thursday, June 27, 2013 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Before you today is the Director of Community Services and Parks regarding reductions in the fiscal year 2013-2014 proposed annual action plan for Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, Emergency Solutions Grant, ESG, Home Investment Partnership Act Home Programs, and approval of a revised proposed annual action plan. 1A is council motion approving the revised fiscal year 2013-2014 CDBG, ESG, and Home Annual Action Plan, and authorizing submission of the plan to the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. 1B is authority motion approving the revised fiscal year 2013-14 CDBG, ESG, and Home Annual Action Plan, and authorizing submission of the plan to the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD.
Mr. Cho.
Yes, sir. Back in April, we approved, or you approved, the CDBG action plan with all the associated funds, but by the end of May, we had received what the final amounts were going to be for the 13-14 year, and a 4% reduction was meted out to cities and agencies like Glendale. So with that, to give you the detail, Mr. Duran will walk you through a brief presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Ochoa. Mayor Weaver, members of the City Council, Vice Chair Parazian, members of the Housing Authority. As Mr. Ochoa alluded to, back on April 23rd, the City Council and the Housing Authority did approve a proposed fiscal year 13-14 CDBG, ESG, and Home Annual Plan as follows. For CDBG, it was $2.067 million. For ESG, it was $242,624, and for Home, it was $963,000 for a total annual plan that was submitted to HUD of $3,272,624. The CDBG part of that plan that was approved was as follows. We had estimated a formula entitlement allocation of $1,852,000, and including reprogrammed funds, totaled the CDBG proposed plan of $2,067,000. The formula entitlement, the 1.852, was based on a projected CDBG entitlement of $1,931,000 minus a voluntary reduction of $79,000, which was for the city's repayment to HUD for the New Horizons Child Care Development Project, based on a 3-year repayment term. As you might recall, the plan that we had with HUD is HUD would allow us to repay the $239,000 from the New Horizons project that had to be withdrawn, and the original plan was that we could pay it off over a 3-year term, which would be in the form of an automatic reduction from our annual entitlement. What we learned in May, after the Council's approval in April of the plan, is that HUD, rather than approving a 3-year repayment, approved a 2-year, which further reduced the funds available, as you'll see in a minute. In terms of the way we go about estimating our allocations and funds available every year, it's based on staff's best estimate of anticipated HUD entitlement amounts based on discussions that we have throughout the planning year and feedback from our local HUD office. The local HUD office in LA is responsible for consulting and advising the city on its entitlement projections, including predicting any reductions. Then HUD headquarters, oddly enough, does not publish the final entitlement amounts until May of each year, although the annual plans are due on May 31st. What we were hearing from Washington at the time that we were developing our plan was decreases to the HUD budget, but with offsetting increases. So HUD was back and forth on increases versus decreases. So it was even more difficult to anticipate the funds that we would be receiving. Then on May 30th, HUD made it official, and HUD published the final actual fiscal year 13-14 formula entitlement allocations as follows. For CDBG, in April, the Council approved 1.852. The actual is 1.693, which is a difference of $158,000. For the Emergency Solutions Grant Program, it's a lot worse. The Council approved a plan that we had estimated back in April of $242,624, and the actual entitlement from HUD is $141,386 for a difference of minus $101,238. Home, oddly enough, actually received a $37,000 increase from $963 to $1,786,000. This revised plan, or the revised final allocations that we received from HUD, is based on HUD recalculating Glendale's formula entitlement allocation, and as I mentioned earlier, us having to pay back the New Horizons repayment in 2 years versus 3 years. So again, our actual new entitlement is $1,813,000. Subtract the $120 that we have to pay HUD from the Horizons project, and that gives us a new adjusted entitlement of 1.693, which again is a difference of 158 from the plan that was approved by the City Council in April.
Jess, whose idea was it the 3-year plan, us or HUD?
It was HUD. We applied for a 3-year repayment, and HUD came back and approved a 2-year repayment.
Oh, they didn't come back with 3 and then changed it to 2.
Correct. Yeah, we applied for 3, and HUD approved a 2.
Must be hurting back in Washington, eh?
Yeah. So what that boils down to is the impact of the CDBG funding reduction on administration. The plan that was approved by the Council in April allocated $370,000 for administration. With the new entitlement, that's down to $338,000, or a $32,000 difference. With regard to social services, the impact is a $23,000 reduction. And then with regard to capital improvement projects, the impact is a $63,000 reduction. Just as a note, the total difference, the $118,000, includes an additional $40,000 in CDBG program funds from the original estimate. So even though the reduction was $158,000, we were able to identify $40,000 from closed-out capital improvement projects that we could reprogram to reduce the impact to the reduction that we got from HUD. So that went from 158 to 118. So what we are recommending, what staff is recommending, I did not think it was prudent to reconvene the CDBG Advisory Committee to try to figure out how to make these reductions, especially as it relates to social service programs and opening up that can of worms again and having agencies come in and resubstantiate their funding proposals. So these are our staff recommendations with regard to administration. The internal service departments such as finance and legal charges the CDBG program for direct services. Each department probably charges anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000. What we decided to do to absorb the cut in administration is for the departments to absorb those direct charges and not charge the CDBG program, and that would save $38,000, and that would address the $32,000 reduction on administration. With regard to social services, we have to cut $23,000. Staff recommends reducing the fair housing program from $9,000 to $6,000. We're able to do that because community development department will help us out, and they will contribute $3,000 in housing funds to make up that $9,000 so that this program remains whole at $9,000. We recommend reducing the youth and family services program from the $10,000 allocation to $0. And because that's in our department, we will reprioritize our staff resources at the Pacific Park Community Center, and we'll do some further restructuring in order to continue to provide some semblance of youth and family services programs, and we will absorb that $10,000. We are recommending to reduce the Camp Rosie allocation from $10,000 to zero. There is a fund balance in the commission budget that could easily absorb the Camp Rosie program, and so we're recommending to use those funding sources instead of the CDBG funds. That will total up to the $23,000 that we have incurred as a reduction on social services. And again, our goal was not to disturb the funding allocations to nonprofits, so that the city projects would take the brunt of the reductions. Then with regard to capital improvements, reduce the Pacific Palmer Playground Improvement Project from $525,000 to $461,000. Again, to have the city take the reductions on the reductions from HUD. So those are our recommendations that would allow us to meet our new entitlement amount and allow us to submit our final plan to HUD by the end of next week and start the new year. With regard to ESG, or Emergency Solutions Grant, in this case we did reconvene the Homeless Proposal Review Committee, and so these recommendations represent their recommendations for revised amounts, and you can see the differences. I don't want to read them all, but every program that was funded under emergency shelter was impacted, and that we figured out with these reductions a way to absorb the $101,000 reduction in funding from HUD. Then with regard to home, it was simpler. Home actually received a $37,000 increase. There's only one project under the home program right now, so that we were able to give a $34,000 increase to the Affordable Rental New Construction Acquisition Rehabilitation Program, and $3,778 for home administration. And those are our recommendations.
The capital program stayed the same?
No, that was reduced by about $60,000, but we'll take that reduction on the Pacific Park, Palmer Park Playground Equipment Project.
So there was no contact with the CDBG Commission?
No.
They don't know about this until now, until the report came out?
No, that's correct. We, as the CDBG Advisory Committee is very much in flux because we don't have a full committee. I don't think we would have been able to get a quorum even if we had time to convene the advisory committee.
I mean, from the standpoint, did you even consider telling them, here's what we're doing and why?
But I think the point being that we haven't seated the new CDBG committee, and there's considerable new membership on.
I understand that, but like Efren Oliveris is there, stuff, just at least let them know what you're doing and why. It would just seem that is a fair thing to do. Say, we're not coming to you unless we're directed by council to stop and go back.
Mayor Weaver, that's a very fair comment. If we had discussions, it was informal. But the other reason that the staff feels confident with these recommendations is at the beginning of deliberations every year, the advisory committee, as you've heard, because they have come, and including Mr. Olivares, and spoken to the council about the need to continue to fund city projects versus making more funds available to the community. So I'm very confident that they are in line with these funding recommendations.
Yeah, it's just like anything that comes here that at least no notifications, that lack of communication, it just doesn't sit well with me. I understand we're limited. There's not many options, and they probably would concur what you did, but you know, we're going to hear at least from one person, maybe others, about it, and I'm glad there's no CDB commissioners here that want to get up and say, where were we? I mean, we've heard these things before. Anyhow, I do have one card, unless you have something to say, Mr. Jarian.
So just let me just clarify that. We took two hits. First is the the sooner repayment of the
2 year rather than 3
funding.
Yes.
And the other is the 118 reduction is due to
The HUD.
the sequestration, essentially? Is that where that came from?
I should have expanded on that. HUD recalculated the entitlement formulas, and based on an American Community Survey, which is an update of 2010 census data, and HUD determined, or as part of their calculation, because Glendale's population has decreased, the number of families that we have at the poverty level has gone down, the number of low-income households in Glendale has decreased, the number of substandard dwelling units in Glendale has decreased. In the formula, it spit out that Glendale has less of a need for the HUD funds. So that's the main reason for the reduction in our formula allocation, which we were not aware of. We weren't aware that HUD was going to be using the American Community Survey data for fiscal year 13-14. And in fact, based on the American Community Survey, City of Pasadena, Burbank, and LA City received increases. So HUD determined that their need increased and Glendale's decreased.
And our nonprofits have indicated that their caseload is not ebbing by any substantial amount.
Let me understand this. We have a very good relationship with HUD, don't we?
We do?
We've been told that. So because we're doing a better job, we get cut and our surrounding cities get raises.
No, I think it's a census showed that there are less low-income people
Is that
living in
it?
Glendale. Right.
Yes.
Based on the survey, yeah.
Fewer families.
I don't necessarily buy that.
I don't buy it.
And these are decisions made in Washington. Our local office didn't even know in order to be able to advise us.
I understand. Two of us don't exactly believe that. Okay, I have one card. Natalie?
Good afternoon, Mayor Weaver and
3
council
minutes.
members, Housing Authority. I'm Natalie Comoro. I'm the Executive Director of Ascensia. As you know, we did experience a $34,000 cut in this most recent proposal. I just want to thank the staff for working under really difficult circumstances. We were led to believe during the sequestration discussions that we should be bracing ourselves for a 3 to 8% cut. And due to the way in which HUD rearranged their funding, the Emergency Solutions Grant took a much greater hit than the Continuum of Care funding. And so I understand how that worked out from a bureaucratic standpoint. Of course, the consequence isn't happy for us. But I do want to say that the staff worked very hard. They communicated with our congressman, who also tried to sponsor an amendment in appropriations to put back some funding. And unfortunately, that was not supported and it didn't pass. So we're sort of all in this together in terms of receiving the bad news. We'll do everything we can to keep those beds going, but I have to tell you, the notice was very short. We had just a few weeks to learn that we lost that much money. So just stay tuned. We'll be doing some more ambitious fundraising over the summer so we can keep that, close the gap and keep those beds available in the emergency shelter program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The federal government, and all their wisdom. You raise the money, and they'll come back and say, see, you didn't need all that anyhow because you did it on your own. Jeez. Any other comments from my colleagues?
I have a comment and question.
Yes.
So first of all, I wanted to thank the staff for their thorough and well-prepared report. Then I have a question. What does HMIS stands for? On page 6.
Vice Chair President,
Okay.
I apologize. It's an acronym for Homeless Management Information System. It's the information system that HUD requires us to use for the agencies to be able to share information on homeless persons and be able to track them and the services that they receive.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion for the council?
I will move.
1A?
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Council members Friedman, Najarian,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Tanyan, Mayor Weaver.
Aye.
I will move the item for the
For the housing?
Housing Authority.
Second. Roll call.
Authority members Friedman, Mincy,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Aye.
Tanyan, Vice Chair Parazian.
Yes.
Maybe next year they'll be generous and give us a 1% increase. Their generosity will overwhelm us. Okay, with that, is our motion adjourned for the city council,
So moved.
Okay.
for the housing authority?
So moved.